Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I know this is post-lunch, and some of you might be feeling hungry. If you haven't had lunch yet, some of you might be feeling sleepy. But what we're trying to do is make this entire session as engaging as possible, interact with you, answer a lot of your questions, and definitely provide you with some insight into how does CSR play an important and vital role in shaping the workforce of tomorrow. I think before even starting the entire conversation, I would like to thank each and every one of you to join me up on the stage. All of these individuals have great projects, have been working in the skill development, education, and shaping the workforce of tomorrow for a couple of years. And what we're going to try to do is not only to tell you about the impact that we've created, but to tell you how exactly we've done that. So some of those success stories, some of those applications can be replicated, scaled up, and possibly can be help a lot of not-for-profits who are sitting in the room to, take some leverage out of it. So I'm going to start with Rumi. And this is a question that will come to all of us, which is when we talk about workforce of tomorrow, when we talk about the role of CSR in it, what exactly are the three most critical things that you think are indispensable in this entire process?
Thank you so much, Manoviraj, and thanks to the CSR Box team for inviting us here. I know for sure all of us are going to enjoy the session, so we hope you do too. Given that it's post-lunch, you will hear us talking a little louder than usual. Bear with us. But to Manoviraj's very serious question, I think one of the trends that we are seeing is, hiring patterns have changed in the workplace, right? And hiring is moving more towards skills-based hiring rather than academic qualification-based hiring. That said, it's not that academic qualifications or similar qualifications don't matter. They are there, but much of the hiring process is focusing on skills assessment when you assess a candidate. And I think this is a very emerging sort of a dominant trend in the workforce place, which should shift our attention more into what is the kind of experience that a candidate brings on the table versus what's the kind of qualification that the candidate has. And I think this is one of the key trends that we see. The second trend that is dominating is the flexibility of learning, like transferability of skills. And I think this has remained a focus for the past decade, and I think everybody out here would agree. And this consistently remains the key focus, which is not only technical skills, but transferable skills. And those transferable skills are emerging to be more and more important or alongside your technical skills. And quickly, the third one, if I may say so, which I think we are all in this room very familiar with, which is, your learning does not end, which means that every candidate, every young person has to understand that even if you have got a job, you still need to be open to flexible to relearning or new learning. And that learning process is a lifelong one. I think that's a kind of mindset that we probably have to build in the young people that we are working with. I'll move on.
Thank you, Rumi. Rama, your thoughts on the same?
So I'm gonna pick one area and talk about that. I think one big area is EQ or emotional quotient. I'm going to talk about that also because I think we very often go after the hard metrics and the tangible metrics. And this is one space that I find that we always struggle with. It's an area we're working in. If you look at a lot of the reportage that's happening even recently, I think mental health and sort of being emotionally happy is something that's not only impacting the skill force in the underserved, but also in the privileged area. Two areas that we find a challenge. One is that it's difficult to define because there's a lot of soft metrics. The second thing is that you need a lot of board commitment to be able to stay with it for a long period of time because it takes a long time to measure and to actually get results. But I do think it's critical because I think a lot of the audience that we're working with are first-time youth who are working. They have no role models. A lot of them are migratory. So to that extent, there's a lot of emotional sort of challenges that they're working with. Also the pressure of success And lastly, I think, I'm speaking for myself, but I think there's an age gap between us and the Gen Z. And so there's a lot that's happening in social media and the way the youth look at employment and skills. And I think there's a lot that they're dealing with. So EQ for me is one big thing.
Ashok, three things, right?
Yeah, three things, and thanks, Manoviraj. And it's a benefit to talk after learned people like Rama and Rumi, right? Many of the points have been emphasized. Uh, Wearing the hat of both the business and the CSR, sometimes I get a unique vantage view, and also being a contrarian. I would just take one step back before reiterating some of the points my esteemed panelists said. Why don't we think about why as well, along with the how, right? And as a nation, how can we bring the design thinking approach to create a playbook for developing a skilled workforce? Rohini Nilekani, right? She beautifully sums it by saying Samaj, Sarkar, and Bazaar, right? So developing a skilled workforce requires a triangulation between all these three entities, including academia, right? So we need to cover these aspects and work towards that. The most certain thing about the future is it's uncertain. Nobody knows what's happened. Did Bosch factories imagine that they would be having robots working along with our skilled workers? Do advertising agencies anticipated that ChatGPT would be their content copywriter? No one, right? So that's the most certain thing. I think coming to the specific 3 points, which have been reiterated is really the domain expertise to work on creating a workforce which is in plan with the nation and the world view towards a Viksit Bharat or a Viksit society. Today, on the one hand, we have the GCCs coming in India, the semiconductor industry is coming, and there's a shortage there, and on the other hand, there's abundant supply. So how can we have a holistic approach towards the vision? Then, of course, the domain skills, I would completely agree with Rumi. Being a lifelong learner is very, very important. The main thing is learn, unlearn, and relearn. That is what is really required. And also the Gen Z, which was mentioned as well. One of the things which the next generation is going to struggle with is failures, setbacks. How do they deal with this and become a resilient workforce? Because they know everything. At the tip of their hand, they have the whole knowledge available. Their aptitude, their ability to learn new things is very, very high. But how do they navigate the softer side of things is going to be important. So if I have to reiterate, strong fundamental skills is required in a emotionally resilient manner with a constant learning approach towards life, which is backed by a holistic design thinking approach.
Sakina, three indispensable things.
I think most of my co-panelists have shared what they, but maybe I look at it a different way. I look at it from an employment perspective, from an employer's perspective. So while the student is getting trained and getting into the workforce, it's very important for us to see the employers also. What is the role of the employer going to be? See, employer cannot be there when the trainee joins the job. They have to be there much before, while the training is being given, because otherwise you will be retraining that trainee again when they enter the employment system. That's a waste of time, that's waste of resources. So why cannot employers be a part of the training system when they are there? They connect with the academia, and I think a lot of organizations in the country are already doing it. But how big or how deep is that connect is one very important, very critical thing of the workforce management and growth. Second part, I believe, is cross-sectoral skills. We focus on too much on niche skills, one skill at a time, and I don't think that's how the world is growing. Our future generation needs cross-sectoral skills. They have to know, if I'm not fit on this job, I have the skills to do something else. I can always digress, and I have the opportunity without feeling frustrated, because you have AI today. It wasn't there a few years back. So all of a sudden, everybody feels at a disadvantage that what do we do? How do we grow with times? How do we compete with times? And that's an amazing thing for us to look at when we are really looking at growth of the workforce within the country, not only the corporate sector, any sector in the country. Third, for me, is very important in terms of the orientation. Every employer has to have a deep orientation sessions or programs for anybody entering their workforce, whether it's a fresher or somebody joining from some other place. Extremely important that employers invest in that. See, that helps in two ways. Obviously, retention is a major problem. So you need to retain, that's why you need to invest. It's not that you just hire them, done the process, and let them be a part of the system and let them absorb the learnings on their own. I don't think that works anymore. As Ashok said, that we have Gen Z very impatient. They don't have patience for this. And I think we have to be ready for absorbing the Gen Z and retaining the Gen Z. How do we do that? It can only happen when the HR systems goes beyond what it does right now. So a lot of onus on employers, a lot of onus on organizations who absorb such resource within the system.
And Manoviraj, my apologies, but one of the things we also need to look at as a society is the future of work is changing, right? We are thinking of a skilled workforce, but today the gig economy, the freelancing economy is such a huge workforce. So your conventional mechanisms of influencing, nudging, when it is a associate in my factory premises or my office, I have a different control. But when he is on a bike out there, how do I manage that workforce? So those are some of the questions we are also grappling, learning as we do and as we experiment.
So Ashok, let's take that conversation a bit forward, right? I think we talked about AI coming in, we talked about robotics coming in, and we talked about what exactly is the future of workforce, right? What do you think how CSR initiatives that all of us are implementing or funding, how they can ensure that our future and upcoming workforce are ready to take up that challenge that the emerging technologies of today is going to throw at us?
So that's a wonderful question, and I think there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of apprehension about the AI world and how, a lot of people are going to become unemployed and irrelevant. I think many of those fears are unfounded, and we have seen that through the internet boom, the digitization boom. But coming specific to your question of how CSR initiatives could help, and I see CSR initiatives of both IT companies and non-IT companies. One of the things we have to understand that the workforce we are talking about, the skill development initiatives in, say, automation, AI, those new age tools, those associates, those people need to take a step back, and all of us also need to take a step back, because the foundations of those are in inculcating the STEM education. And I'm very happy to see so many STEM exhibitors here. So creating that bent of mind for science, technology, mathematics would be very, very important in that strata of the society, because many of them take quick jobs, right? So creating that is a first step, and it's a stepping stone towards helping them. Second area which we really see is the lack of confidence. Again, like as I said, many of us fear them. The fear is many, many fold in that section of the society to learn about AI, automation. They feel an inferiority complex. They feel that something is missing. And in the how part which you mentioned, we have worked with their parents, their educators, in creating them confidence, helping them building some building blocks like learn robotics, learn simple programs, right? So which will create that confidence, and then you can take up these technologies, right? The third factor where the non-IT companies can help is giving them opportunities for experiential learning. I still recollect that, we talk about BFSI skilling in many associations, and we work with Bharat Cares as well, right? There we focus on the fundamentals, but having a session around budget, doing a mock stock application where we give them a mock application and give them money to learn something. We give them that how do you do algorithmic trading, right? So giving those experiential learning also increases their confidence. So these are some of the things, as I said, STEM building blocks, experiential learning, involving the whole ecosystem of different players. And finally, giving them the confidence to go out. And we also rotate industry experts. We get the people from our offices to go and have sessions, do hackathons, do mentoring sessions, because many times a different voice and a visit to, say, a Bombay Stock Exchange, a visit to a Dell AI center creates and pops up those ideas and motivates, which no lecture can give that. So I think these are some of the things if we as a CSR community and the industry can do, will go a long way in creating curiosity, creating confidence, and creating capability, which I always believe is the 3 C's of success.
Thank you so much, Ashok, for that piece. Sakina, Ashok actually quoted those 3 words, right? Samaj, Sarkar, Bazaar. And there was one element left out of that, which was academia. And how do you think academia industry partnership can be brought together, and what exactly CSR can do in that to promote that piece?
I think academic institutions have a very, very big role to play. We're not talking about only about college and universities, we're talking about schools as well. I think we're very late when we talk about skilling. Skilling has to start at the school level. It cannot be done after schools. That is why the new education policy is drafted and now in force. So when we look at the broader data of the country, around 160 million students are in the government school, and approximately similar number is in private schools as well. And then you look at the number of colleges and universities you have in India, which is government colleges and universities, and you also look at private colleges. You will see the kind of number of students that we cater to in the country and how many of them come out of the education system skilled or with the thought that what they want to do in life. I don't think that's an advantage that we have. Even I studied in a very affluent private school, but I myself had no clue till class 11 what am I supposed to do in life. Things have changed. I think it's 20 years now. Things have changed where we are talking about it in schools, where the child has started thinking about what is the interest of that child towards what they want to do in life. Now, for us, academic institutions are the stepping stones, even for skilling. You have to start from that base. You cannot let the child come out of the school system and then say, "Ab mujhe kya karna hai? Mujhe pata nahi." So for us, it's very important that at that level, at the school level, we are able to not only look at the child, we are able to train the teachers, tell them how they have to educate these students, which is more academic, curriculum based, but at the same time experiential, which Ashok has already very well defined. That experiential learning is extremely important. Experiential learning is not only to embed the academic system in your mind, but also making you understand what is it that you are driving towards. Every child, with the advent of digitalization, technology, access is easy. They're already aware, much aware than we may have been 20 years back. So what are you telling them and what are you driving them towards it? Earlier, it was only engineering and doctor professions which were thought. Now you look at the professions, you look left, right, you see the kind of courses that you have, opportunities that you have. The world has opened. And I don't see that we are taking enough advantage of that opportunity that is coming, which has to start from the school level. You cannot ignore it. When it comes to academic institutions, higher academic institutions, colleges and universities, you will see a lot of give and take now happening within corporates because we have realized that we cannot just start skilling people and then let them be. Academic institutions play a very huge role, especially in our case in Bosch. We've realized it long back that you have to have an industry academia connect because you will drive it better if you are working along with those who are giving education or who are working on innovation and incubation. If we don't do, if you actually fall short of that race, we are very much left behind with the number of population that we have, the young generation that we have, which are in government schools, universities and colleges. Government schools need to come up hugely, and that corporate and government can support it together to make sure that these kind of experiential learnings are done there itself, especially with teachers who are the education givers. Then students will automatically start getting those inputs from the teachers, which I don't think is happening across. But we have seen, we've proved the concept that yes, it has helped, it has worked. It has made the child in class 7, 8 realize that what is my calling, what do I want, where is my interest, how do I learn? I don't have to learn through books, I can learn through experiences or through skilling. And what does vocational skill means, which is not vocational skill as a menial word. Now, it is absolutely which is driving you towards your career. So academic institutions not only play a role in terms of providing you space, your curriculum, your teachers, innovation and incubation, but it also helps you realize there are systemic issues within the education system where you together can work and deal with. Corporates have the opportunity and they have the strength to provide that expertise to academic institutions. Academic institutions has the infrastructure and the teaching resource which they can share with each other. And similarly, the government has to pave way for, especially for, if you look at the ITIs in the country, look at how ITIs are working. Amazing infrastructure, but you won't see teachers, you won't see students, you won't see the infrastructure being used. Even if the corporates spend money and set up the infrastructure, a few years after that, it is in a dilapidated condition. So it's very unfortunate how we are letting things go waste. So where is the solution? There has to be a solution in this, and I think together we need to find a solution. CSR, I think, comes out with an open arm to work with academia and the government. But sustenance is a problem here, and I think that is a problem that we need to tackle together, and we have to find a solution together. That's how it will sustain, and making sure that academia is used to its full potential, not just giving only academic education to the students who deserve it the most.
Thank you so much for that, Sakina. Rumi, let's steer the conversation to a new direction, right? I think while we're talking to a lot of CSR heads, while we're talking to understanding what exactly boards nowadays are talking about, one of the key words that comes out is sustainability. Everyone's talking about that, right? And it's been integrating into absolutely every thematic area that we can think of, specifically skill development and education nowadays. How exactly are you integrating sustainability into your skilling initiatives nowadays?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think you will find some repetitions from what Ashok has said, Sakina has said already. But if I take a step back, with technology, the AI point that Ashok talked about, the other thing that is taking center stage is sustainability or green skills or green mindset. And I point out this mindset bit of it, and I think it has resonated with everybody's talk. So what we are trying to look at is not only skill set, but also a mindset. And today, every sector you name, whether it is manufacturing or services and technology services or anything, agriculture, every industry is going through a transformations, right? And the transformation, as much as technology, it is also sustainability and green. So today, most of the companies, no matter which industry they are, they're looking for people who can be a part of, can guide, can steer their transition into low-income, carbon footprint companies. So with this as a context, I think there is no debate, at least in many of our minds, is that the future of jobs is going to be green, no matter what job it is, no matter what industry this is. Now, in the context when we understand that every job, every industry is going to be impacted by green, which is going to look at how do you decarbonize, how do you bring down your emission, greenhouse gases, how do you reduce your waste, how do you make sure you are able to use those technologies that can help you become more, low carbon footprint industry, then you also need people who are able to really, really understand what it means for them. Which means that I think it's a clear direction that there is a need to relook at how we are skilling. And it's not about saying, look, we will do solar installation as a trade skill only. I think it's important, but it is also important to probably think through from a more holistic angle on how each of the jobs, each of the industries is going to be impacted by green, and what are those kind of skill set that we need to develop. So I just to probably highlight, how do we approach this in terms of corporate responsibility is that we do understand that firstly, you start with building awareness. So it's not a debate between what skill is most important. It is primarily to say that, this is going to be an inherent skill set that you require. And understanding climate change, understanding sustainability, understanding low carbon futures are a reality for everyone. Understanding how do you resource, you do sustainable use of resources, or how do you reduce your waste, how do you not pollute, that is fundamental to the way that you are going to operate. So with that as a context, I think the first thing that we look at doing is building awareness across the segment where we are looking at a training, skilling, upskilling, and so on, or fundamentally building awareness there. So first thing is awareness building. And what we do is, like Sakina was saying, it needs to start at the very fundamental level, which is schools. Which means if you're running a STEM program, you also incorporate ideas of how does the critical thinking behavior also expands to solutioning for what you see around you, whether it is about waste or other issues that impact you, that has an impact on environment and so on and so forth. Take it forward to vocational learning where you're talking about, well, how each of your vocations going to impact by skills. So awareness needs to be across the board into all of the skilling things. The second thing that we are doing, and that is more specific to what you're asking, is that, every skilling program has a potential to imbibe green thinking or a green mindset or an element of what would this be if you have to adopt green technologies or have green considerations to become more efficient. And what we are doing more and more is that we are trying to incorporate that element of awareness and learning into all our skilling program, large-scale skilling program that we do across the board, whether it is with the Ministry of Skills for vocational learning or with AICTE for higher education learning and so on. So you incorporate that element into your existing program and make sure there is a transition that is happening. The third thing is that along with learning, you have to also be able to transition to jobs, which means we are trying to, along with many partners in the system, trying to build stronger knowledge around what would those jobs look like, what are the current connects. Now we all know that in India, for example, the renewable energy and the mobility industry has been the fastest in adopting green, right? So energy sector is growing. So most of the jobs that are coming up are around those sectors, even though India, International Labour Organization says there's going to be some 25 million jobs that will be green in near future, which is a couple of years away. We are yet to map those jobs. So how do you not stop at just awareness building, but also go to the job connects, which means giving young people an idea of where to go for those jobs, what to get as a part of your first experience of jobs, and so on. And the fourth thing is, I think, one cannot exist without the thinking around entrepreneurship. As a country itself, we are not probably going to become only a job workforce country, but also entrepreneurs country. So the idea of solutioning, the idea of entrepreneurship is very critical. So that's the fourth pillar of how we focus on imbibing sustainability in our learning. And maybe I'll just give two examples. We have a program called Green Skills Passport, which talks about sustainability, climate change, entrepreneurship, and then what are the skills and career pathways around sustainability. We had introduced this program about a year and a half back in partnership with Ministry of Skills. And I think in 8 months' time, we had about 50,000 students who are in vocational learning who had enrolled in the program. And at this point, I think we stand at 60,000, 65,000 plus students who are taking that course. Now, what it does is that, you understand when we are saying vocational learning, we are talking about anything from cosmetics and cosmetology to electronics to everything else in between. Now you're telling these students, you're helping the students understand how would that particular vocation be impacted with green. And how do you then guide them to understand what kind of jobs they could look for. We did have a lot of success there, and one of our, the one that I remember, there are many, one of our young girls from Telangana, she was going through probably an electronic diploma of 1.5 years, and she got to be a part of the program along with her many classmates, and she got a job she's probably one of the first jobs in a energy company. And that transition from a diploma, polytechnic diploma course holder to a very good energy company is a big jump. And she was, we were very surprised that she said that in all our courses, and many of our friends who have got through this kind of job, they said we would have never thought that this was also an opportunity. We would have gone into our traditional electronic segment job hunting, and then as a part of the program, we understood what it means to also look at these alternatives, and the way with confidence in which we were able to really crack something that is not your traditional line of work was amazing for them. So we think that this gives us a lot of opportunities to see into, integrate greening or green skills building into the traditional sector. Maybe I'll leave with one more examples of how we did it. Like we are saying that every skills program need to be very experience-based. So we also ensure that we are doing college training program in colleges, in tier 3, tier 4 colleges, talking about AI and data analytics and cloud, etc. So we run many deep training programs in partnership with AICTE. We also try to see that all of these kids are getting an experience of a quasi-internship in a way that they are doing enough and more real-life capstone projects that gives them an opportunity to use what they are learning in a more real-life scenario. And we do extensive capstone project, extensive virtual internships so that students get a more real-life opportunity. Now, in many of this training, we have started introducing, along with our NGO partners who implement this program, and their credibility plays a big role in this, is that ideas of using data that has an inherent impact on sustainable or green decision making. So that gives them an idea of what it would mean to create decision models using data that would play a role in a company or a particular segment's decision towards moving into sustainable practices. So that's another way that we are trying to incorporate the idea of green within your standard data analytics, cloud thinking, and so on. I'm going to pause here.
Thank you so much, Rumi. So what I really understood through a lot of conversations that we're having is that one thing is clear. Things are changing pretty fast. Things are evolving. And as Ashok said, the future always remains uncertain, right? Given this uncertainty, I think there are three things that become more important: innovation, creativity, and collaboration. Rama, how exactly are these three words associating with the kind of programs that you'll be doing and how you're integrating it into them?
Okay. I know we've talked a lot about innovation and we've talked about creativity as well. So one of the things that, in one of the earlier sessions that I attended, somebody said that in forums like this, why do we always only talk about success? Why don't we talk about failures? So I'm gonna start with saying that a lot of the things that I have personally learned actually is from things that don't work so well. And I think I do want to talk about some of the stuff that we've tried and we've found difficult and what are some of the challenges. So for instance, I think the whole thing of partnerships, for instance, it is something that from the time that I've been in the sector, which has been over a decade, everybody talks about it. So it's a no-brainer. And I think we've all reached a stage now where we know that we can't scale and we can't grow without partnerships. I think the challenge is in actually implementing it, and there are very few success stories where people have had long-term partnerships which have scaled effectively. If I look at it, I come from an organization where I think we have the advantage of the top 100 spenders really being our clients. So partnerships should come to us very naturally. But I think one of the biggest challenges that we find is that we get into partnerships because the brand name sounds interesting, because you think that that's the right sort of a partner that you want. Very often, we don't do the sort of hard questioning that we should. Like, for instance, I'll give an example. We were in a partnership where the brand name seemed perfect from a cultural point of view. We realized about 4 or 5 months later that our vision of success or what success would look like was not aligned. And I'm going to give an example. It could be as small as you want to work in the north, somebody else wants to work in the south. It could be something as you measure success as the number of people you've reached, whereas somebody else measures it in terms of the depth of change that you've made. So I think the first thing is when you look at partnerships is push harder and make sure that the partner that you have is not just the best brand name, but really right for you. Align on what your success will look like. It also is important to see that do you really complement each other's skill sets. We've been in very successful meetings and then walked away not knowing who's going to do what, because roles of who's going to do what is not really called out. And also, if it's not an equal relationship, at some stage somebody's working much harder to make the partnership work and pushing a lot harder, and the other person is not actually that engaged. So I think my personal sort of experience in this has been to try it out first for the first couple of months. If you find that you have a good working relationship, then move into a formal partnership, because there's so much legal, there's so much paperwork involved, that first figure out if the dynamics are working, if you're actually complementing each other. The second thing, which is part of whether it's innovation or whether it's partnership, I think we all have this not invented here syndrome. If you create an entire product and then take it out and expect somebody to pick it up and scale it, it doesn't work. So the best thing is to co-create. So you will have to have an idea. The best thing to do is to get in your partners as early as possible so you all have an equal stake in it. And also that the product that you finally come out with or the service that you come out with is something that everybody is equally invested in. So I would say look for co-creation as much as possible. The third thing I think is, as a CSR industry, the CSR fraternity is very small and we're very tight, and be very sort of closely knitted among ourselves, but we are very, very insular. The rest of the organization has no clue what we do and we're not really engaged with it. So I would say we need to democratize CSR. The more you get employees to volunteer, the more you get organizations to look at it from a top-down point of view, the change doesn't really happen. Otherwise, it's happening in a little silo and it doesn't really sort of materialize down the line, and neither is it sustainable. And lastly, I think that as an industry, we're quite shy of talking about success. I come from a communication background where we do talk about success, but even CSR, we don't talk about it much. So I would say, whether it's an innovation, whether it's creativity, whether it's partnership, I think the sector needs role models. It needs to see success. So if you have something that works, we should be comfortable to talk about it and share learnings where it doesn't work also, which I think we always talk about things that work. We should spend a lot more energy talking about things that don't work. We can learn a lot more from there. And I'm going to stop.
Thank you, Rama. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was the panel. But let's open a couple of questions. CSR Box team, if you can help us with that.
Thank you. My name is Atul Bhatnagar. I'm from the Pan IT Alumni Foundation. My request, I've heard Sakina also mention about this. Look, the problem we face with CSR, and we do work with a lot of corporates, we train underserved people in gurukuls, in the residential form. We take people who are the first time into the banking situation, financial inclusion, women empowerment, you name it, we have it, aspirational districts, etc. But when it comes to asking corporates for funding, one is there are too many things to be tied with it. We want this, we want that, we want this, the other, everything. We are into manufacturing. We are trying to take the space in manufacturing, trying to move the needle for India so that if China moves, India gets in. And manufacturing is highly capital intensive. It requires a lot more funding. It requires funding over a period of time. So we need 5 years kind of CSR literally. We can't be having, no, last year we gave you, but this year, no, we're getting, our board is looking at differently. So some of these things need to be ironed out. Otherwise, what happens is it will be piecemeal. On your annual report, you will come and say, oh, we did first agriculture, the next year we did healthcare, and third year we did edtech, and the fourth year we did, but very frankly, no impact.
Yeah, I know. No, so I wanted to understand. So the thing is, I'm not sure what your question is, but I would agree with you in saying that, unless there's a long-term alignment. So I find that, so as a donor, what I find is there are a lot of partners who come and make their pitch in terms of saying, this is what I do, and then they expect, and they would like funding. But a lot of times what happens is, I find the work interesting, but I'm struggling in my head to see where it fits in, because we're all answerable, right? We're all answerable either to our boards or to... So I think what would really help is that if you had a meeting to understand where the corporate is also coming from and see where your piece fits in, and see if there's a long-term alignment, which is why I said, like, if there is a long-term alignment, then it's easier to have a long-term relationship. Otherwise, you get into it thinking something a year later, it doesn't make sense because somebody down the line or somebody in the board is not convinced about it, and so you pull out. So I would say that look for a strategic fit. It's better, in my mind, it's better to have fewer, long, deeper relationships, because you work very hard with every relationship that you need to get. There's a lot of effort that goes in.
So I'll go. I am Dilip from ISDM, Indian School of Development Management. Thank you for picking this subject about tomorrow's workforce CSR box. And Manovi, thanks for bringing the academic angle to the thing. So my question is two. One is, how do you look at implementing the Prime Minister's internship scheme, which is a big one? And somewhere I was looking for one of you will touch that. And second is, among the skill sets which has been identified for which the internships can be given, unfortunately, the social sector workforce is not part of that. Given that social sector SPOs is probably the second largest, industry or a sector from a number of people employed directly, indirectly. So, yeah, anyone if you can do that.
Would you like to take that?
No, you know what? My usual answer would have been this, which is we are still evaluating it. We are understanding the nuances of the policy, and then we'll get to it. But I think that's where it stands today. There are too many elements that are unclear, and while there are companies that has sort of quickly come on board and converted and sort of taken the internship thing forward, I think from our position, we would say that we are still trying to understand where it gets us, what's the value, what's the next stage, and so on. Perhaps I'll just defer it to.
I think, thanks for bringing up this question, and I think in our pre-panel discussion, we knew that this is going to come. I think there are a lot of nuances to it, right? We, of course, feel it's a bold step, it's a nice step because it brings attention to the whole internship thing. What we hope is, and as she rightly mentioned, we are looking at the details, but we hope it doesn't turn into a program where the existing training and the responsibility shifts from one sector to the other and it goes, right? Beautiful things to take care of, providing the funding support, focusing on certain areas. And I think while the CSR sector, the social sector is not given the equal prominence, but I think it goes without saying the biggest influencer, the biggest enabling agency is going to be the whole social development sector. And I think as we get more into the fine prints and the program comes into the execution mode on the ground, these things will unfold for sure.
In the circular which has come, development sector is not part of the identified skills for which the scholarship support will be governed by GOA as well as the CSR budget. So my second query is, sorry, I'll complete 5 seconds, is I understand that CSR was not part of the whole panel discussion paper work group. Doesn't really matter now. But it's going to go from all your budgets, right? $6,000 X into whatever. So is there a thinking, at least in 4 of you, that some of the skill sets in the social sector needs to be groomed, needs to be upskilled, etc.? Case in point, for example, say program managers. We need more program managers, we need more qualified program people, etc., because everything is becoming from a social sector lens, impact lens, measurable lens, etc., which is not the typical program manager from an NGO sector would have that, glass. So are you guys open to support a program for, say, program managers from the CSR budget under this scheme? That's it.
Can I answer that? I don't know why we think social sector is different from the corporate sector. You're absolutely right, but the skills that are required in the social sector are exactly what you have in the corporate sector. You don't require any other skills. In fact, we build capacities of our non-profit organization partners who don't have those skills, but we want them to be as professionally driven as a corporate works. So I don't see a certain many job roles, whether you talk about communication, program management, impact, monitoring, evaluation, data analysis, or data management, whatever you talk about. There are roles which are very much equivalent to what corporate does. And that's what CSR wants. They want partners who are at the equal footing. And I don't see a reason for differentiating between the roles. Now, it's up to, while Rumi had already said that we are looking at it, to be very honest, it's very vague for us, especially for CSR people. And we don't want to comment on it till we ourselves understand it, what it means, how long it's going to be, how sustainable it is going to be. It may be a business decision, no doubt, but CSR has a slight role to play here than just giving the money. So for us, it's extremely important to first understand it and then be able to tell you what is the role of CSR in this whole piece, because eventually CSR is part of the corporate, it's not different.
I think one interpretation of your question, and time's up, is flashing right now, but is that if they have called out internship, which is good for everybody, we are glad that internship is called out because that's a much need in the sector everywhere, right? So we are all glad about the heading. The second is, if they have called out internship and they are going to spend CSR money, why not train CSR professionals? I think that's the conclusion you're trying to draw to. To that point, I would agree with you anywhere else too. But like we all agree that there is a bit of lack of clarity in this process, which gives us opportunities to do something more, but which also makes us a little cautious about what we are committing to. But internship policy or the very ambitious evolved plan aside, I think all of us are involved in capacity building of the not-for-profits. I know you do, we do extensively. Last year, 140, 150 plus not-for-profit officials, multiple rounds we have trained in project management, ESG, productivity tools, you name it, whatever they have come with. So there are robust programs running already in terms of, our sector's capacity building, and I think that will continue with or without the internship. I can say that, yeah.
Yeah, hi, my name is Vaijanti Shankar. I run a company called Center for Science of Student Learning. I've been attending all the panels since yesterday, especially in this room. I think this is one of the panels where I enjoyed. Almost all of you are very, very synergistic in what you're talking about, complementing each other. Having said that, my question is this. So all of you spoke about portable skills, the underlying skills, not necessarily the technical skills, emotional regulation and stuff like that. That is something that we have been researching on, and my expertise comes from how do you measure it in a way that it's diagnostic? How do I know whether this intervention is working or not? How do I know whether this particular person who underwent this program has the skill or not, etc.? And we do a lot of work with governments. But when it comes to funding, we actually see, and we have worked with large 4 state governments, etc. Only 1 or 2 players are there. And they get pretty much exhausted. If I have to take up 2 states, I don't have budget for the 3rd state, and we have so many states in this country. And we know that fundamentally that is going to be the problem, because our measurement tells us less than 10% have thinking skills, even less than that have relationship skills or leadership skills or emotional regulation and stuff like that. And I don't see CSR at all in the space when it comes to measurement, understanding metrics, giving feedback to the diagnostic space, etc., or to the intervention itself. Wanted to understand what is the openness of CSR in that.
So I'm gonna agree with you in saying that it's extremely difficult to measure. Like I said, we struggle with it, right? So we spend disproportionately when it comes to measuring impact. And I think the reason we do that is because we realize that this is a space which is not very easily, it's not something you can just plot on an XY axis. So we spend a lot of effort, both. When I say effort, I mean time and money, doing ethnographic studying and doing longitudinal study. So a lot of qualitative studies to actually understand the change. Like, for instance, we work on 23 different metrics with the same child. And to take your example, if you're looking at a child who's, if you look at confidence, for instance, we know that that particular intervention gets stacked on confidence. But when a child is doing a digital program and is standing on stage and presenting, it does a lot to the child's confidence, but we track that program for digital and not on confidence, right? So I think we're working with a professor at Harvard who's helping us build an entire theory of change on this. It is a long haul. Like I said, you need to have a board that's committed with you, and you need to be invested in a lot of qualitative research, because these are not quantitative methods. We hope we will have a format, maybe by the next CSR box, to talk about it. But 2 things I want to say is, one is it's not easy. Second, you do need to commit long term. And I don't think this is for everyone. So you have to find your few champions who are going to back you on it.
So actually, we have our next
Last
panelist
question,
here
last
with
question.
us, but I understand.
Last
Probably
question.
the last one, sir.
2 minutes. I'm Rajiv Jha. My question is, as a CSR as a whole, how CSR is going to manage their interest with the national interest of the social governance? Because by and large, as a CSR entity, you are mandated by your corporate governance, corporate mandate.
Sir, can you say it again? National interest of?
National interest of social development.
Sorry, I have to pause you there, because everybody is aligned to the government of India's goal.
Let me complete the question, ma'am. This is my time to raise the question. What I'm saying is that Microsoft as an organization cannot do so many things as a BMGF, as a Mr. Gates can do that, because Microsoft has its own mandate to do that as per the CSR. But BMGF as alone can do so many things, which Microsoft cannot do that. So there is a distinction between what the Microsoft can do as an entity, but Mr. Gates, from the Bill Melinda Gates, from own money, can do so many things. So as a CSR, as a company, you have a mandate to do.
We're actually not able to understand the question. So what would be a better...
Let me complete the question. It's not over, sir. You're interrupting me. Second thing is, most of CSRs have got own foundations. That means you are killing the space of a partnership. So how do you going to rectify those questions? Because it is impacting a lot of good, hard-working CSOs and NGOs working at the sub-national level, regional level, and the ground level. Thank you.
Maybe I understood a part part of your question when you're saying that, are you saying that the corporates have their own foundations, they work with them, that's why we don't work with the CSOs? Is it what your question is?
That is partly correct. First question was that how the CSR as an entity is going to convert their work with the national interest of the social development. Okay.
See, I think for the first question, it's very evident. CSR is working only on national interest.
No, then you are evading the question because you are not trying to go inside what I'm
Can you
trying
have
to
the
say.
mic, please? I'm not able to hear you.
What I'm saying is that how the CSR as an entity as a whole, not one CSR, two CSR, because CSR has got own mandate, company mandate. Big,
Do you want a mic?
I understand it doesn't come from the space, it comes from the ground, but you come from the, you are the for the profit sector. You are not for profit sector, no, you are for the profit sector. From your profit, you spend your 2% in the area where you feel it should be, based on your board mandate and all that. So you are bounded by your laws, legalities, shareholders, everything. So your money is not just free money. Okay.
I would like to disagree. I would like to
See,
disagree.
Schedule 7 is mandated by the government itself. It's not CSR driven.
No, it is not CSR driven, but that's why a lot of CSR will spend money in Southwest India, Gujarat, Maharashtra, but will not go to Bihar. You will not go to Northeast. Why? It is because you don't want to, or because it's not your mandate. Because
Then,
you don't sell over there.
then you don't
No.
say national interest. You say that you're
I say-
specifically located in
No,
certain
it is-
locations.
I've simplified my question. That's why you are saying. But thing is, national interest is where? In health, in education, in poverty elimination.
No, but if you look the data, I'm sorry,
what
I
I'm
have to
trying
cut you.
say
If
is
you
that
look at
how
the data,
CSR in coming, shaping tomorrow
No, I think-
workforce going to align their interest with the national social development interest, where
Yeah.
we are not bounded by your own company's mandate only. That's the challenge.
yeah.
But Manoj, I would still
Yeah, yeah,
like to
please
say, for 1 minute only, I disagree with that because lot of these global organizations give a local mandate, global mindset, local. Taking example of ours, I don't want to put a spotlight on others. We are a Goldman Sachs backed company. In India, we work on menstrual wellness. I work with Sabarmati Jail with my partners. We create menstrual wellness. That's not an international mandate. That's a very specific mandate for us, and we work with kids in Jharkhand. We work with Bihar for the code for skills, right? So there are many, and I'm sure many of those do.
But thank you, everyone. I hope the session was loud enough for everybody to hear, interesting enough for everybody to listen to, and hopefully you didn't sleep across.
All right. Thank you.